Hi, this is Mark from Skywagon University, and we are going from Placerville to Auburn, which is it's K-A-U-N, the identifier. It's 20 miles away, and over there is a friend of ours who is building. He's in a build center for a kit plane that's a new to America kind of Brazilian 4-place gull wing Cirrus-esque Columbia type plane, but half the price. Less, even much less than half the price, but with very similar performance. So we're going to go over and look at it. He's got one there that's, we're not going to tell you what it is until you see it, but we're going to look at a partially built, a unbuilt, a nearly built, and you can see the whole process and talk about it. And the other thing that is very interesting is you may notice Don
Hello.
is in the left seat. And having been through that 2.5 year...
2 years, 9 months, but who's counting?
And how many days?
I didn't count them. But it was 2 years and 9 months of fighting the FAA.
Fighting with the FAA to get his medical back, and finally got it. So we're back in his plane, which is a 93 Mooney MSE 201, best plane you can ever buy.
Many of you may have noticed that I'm obese.
Yeah, that's what the FAA said, that he couldn't fly because he was morbidly obese at 146 pounds.
Well, and, give me 168.
But he's back, flying. And now we can be more mobile and doing more things like this.
Yes, and it's fun, and I'm so glad to be back flying. I've missed it very much.
So say what you're thinking, after 2.5 years getting back in, what was missing?
What was missing was flying.
No, but what gaps did you have to fill? Did you feel?
You know, I didn't feel like I'd been away from it when I got back into it. I had, my first 2 landings were kind of garbage. I was using Don Bradley over at Foothill Flight Schools in Cameron Park for my BFR.
Is that why they were bad?
No, they were bad because I was bad, and he was so calm. He's like, "No, you're going to stall it right above the airport. It's fine. Don't worry about it." I'm like, "What? I'm going to crash it." Anyway, the first 2 landings were kind of ugly and resulted in go-arounds, and then the third one was a controlled crash, and then the fourth one was actually quite good, and then from there I was back, and it was like, okay, I've got my visuals, I got my picture back, I knew exactly what to do, and I've flown a couple times since then, and it's just felt absolutely like I've never stopped.
But am I risking life and limb sitting in the right seat?
Well, no more than usual.
But I've got a steering wheel in front of me as well.
Yeah.
He's good, he's back.
Yeah, it's and I'm glad.
So we'll get this run up, we'll do a little bit of filming on the way over there, and then we'll see you in Auburn, where we're going to have some breakfast, and then interview the build center for this Brazilian kit plane, gull wing, high performance single that I think is going to be very popular.
All right, well, we didn't throw oil all over the place, so I feel good, and let's do this.
Placerville traffic, Mooney 9157 Foxtrot, taking runway 23 for departure to the northwest, Placerville.
Don, good luck.
A little harder than I would have liked, but there we are.
Did we land or were we shot down?
Thank you.
So we're at Auburn. We're at the Volato 400. That's what it is. The plane is just called a Volato 400. We're going to talk about the engine, the build. We're going to meet the build center owner who does the assisted builds. We're going to see planes in various progresses of being built. So we're going to walk up here and find James Johnson, who owns the business. Let's have a look. James!
Yeah. Mark!
How are you?
What's going on, brother?
This is James Johnson. He's the guy that owns it. And what's the name of the company?
ABAC, Aircraft Builder Assist Center.
And the plane we're going to look at in detail?
Volato 400.
Okay. And you want us to start in this hangar here?
Yeah, this is our dirty room.
Now, so this is the paint booth inflated, and there's two pumps. One is the structure, the tubular parts of it, and the other is the positive pressure inside it. And those hooks you see hanging from the ceiling will hold it so that even if it were to deflate when something was in it, it couldn't collapse onto a freshly painted plane. And it's got filters, and it's a sterile environment. So if somebody were here building a plane, they would be able to be isolated from everything else and any contaminations. So the Volato 400, what is I mean, this will be a plane that a lot of people have not heard of before. Tell us about the history of it.
So the Volato 400 is a 4-person composite plane. It was originally designed by Richard Trickle.
He's an American designer.
He's an American designer.
But it's not built here though.
No, and that's a little bit bigger story. Essentially, he designed half a dozen different airframes in the 80s, and this was his final masterpiece before he passed away. And he designed this to compete against Cirrus when Cirrus was experimental.
Oh. So where are these built?
So these are built in Brazil. Originally, Richard had partnered up with Volato in Brazil to manufacture these kits. And then after his passing, it took some time for Volato then to get the rights to continue building. And they've been working to bring it to market for, 15, 20 years.
So by build in Brazil, if somebody were to buy one of these, they'd get the fuselage and the wings, and then it comes here, and then you finish it with them.
Yes, as a builder assist, the 51% rule.
So you're not gluing up, you're not starting with scratch and laminating things in a mold. It arrives like this.
Correct, yeah. The whole fuselage is already put together. You have to do finished Bondo work, but you're not joining any seams. The wing comes one piece. We got an example over there where it's a full-length spar from wingtip to wingtip. So it's really just, it sets up and goes.
So you can have it standing on gear as an assembled airframe in how long?
If you have the gear, in a week.
In a week, okay.
Yeah. Realistically, this is about a 1,500-hour build if you're working on it regularly and have a nice hangar and tools to do.
So if somebody wanted to buy and build one and they were local to here, they could come in and you'd be, what's the ratio of owner and build assist?
So the 51% rule wants the owner to participate in 51% of the tasks to complete the plane. Part of that checkoff, though, I can be, as a build center, involved in 100% of the tasks.
Okay.
So there's certain things that don't apply to that rule. For instance, the engine you can have professionally installed. The avionics you can have professionally done. The paint you can have professionally done. And that...
Just on a quick diversion there, the avionics, the next hangar over is an avionics shop.
Exactly. So that's one of the amazing things about Auburn being very pro-aviation and very active, is that we have all the resources, in fact, half of them right in our own hangar row right here.
So you've got avionics, paint,
upholstery shop.
Upholstery.
Yep.
Engines are new and they're delivered.
And we have several flight schools, so for your time that you have to get checked off in the aircraft, there's CFIs here all day long, every day, from sport pilot to private pilot to IFR to commercial.
So you could literally finish it here. And if somebody said, yes, I want it, James, how long, when a plane is, you have some in inventory, you have kits in inventory, how long from that day to them flying it home?
Right around, if we're fully committed to it, the turnaround time is about 6 months.
Okay. And then you end up with a plane that's kind of up there with the Columbia, Cirrus.
That's what it was designed to compete head-to-head with, except this is a much more stable platform. So you don't have the crazy stall characteristics that you hear of with the Lancers and the Cirruses and stuff that would be in the same category as size, useful load, and number of people in the plane.
So this is the way the wing would arrive from Brazil in a crate.
Just about. This one's already had about 30 hours of sanding and priming, but it comes in one piece, full-length spar.
That's the main spar going right through the belly of the plane, tip to tip.
Yes, it goes from tip to tip, and there's no sections.
And there's a plane next door that we're going to look at that's hanging from the ceiling, and it has a slot in the belly, and we'll show you where this spar fits into the belly, into the slot in the belly.
And this is the wing for that plane.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, normally at a build center they'd be like, how long till we get an engine? How long till we get avionics? There's a delay, there's a delay. How many engines are over there?
We got 2 engines over there, 1 on a stand and 1 on the plane. And engines with UL power take about 6 to 8 weeks turnaround from when you order them to where they're drop delivered right here.
And we'll go into the engine in great detail because we have some next door, but just tell us what it is.
UL power, 520T, 220 horsepower, turbo.
6-cylinder.
6-cylinder,
Injected.
electronic ignition, FADAC.
Intercooled.
Intercooled, yeah.
And so it's nearly the same horsepower as a 182.
More.
More, okay.
Yeah.
So 182 is a 230.
Yeah.
And so how much does this plane weigh relative to a 182 gross weight is like over 3,000 pounds?
This plane with engine, gross weight is 1,600 pounds. Useful load, or gross weight of the plane is 2,700 pounds.
Okay. It's going to be fast.
Oh yeah, that's the idea. And we've done a lot of speed mods too.
So here we are in the second hangar, which is right next door to that first hangar, which is right next door to the avionics hangar. And up there, that's why they're called hangars, because there's a plane hanging up there. So there's the fuselage assembled, and if you look closely and forward of the gear, there's a slot in it, and that slot is where the main spar of the wing goes through to give it incredible strength. What are the do you know the G's, plus or minus?
4.
4 G's?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's that in comparison to other planes? I mean, what's a Cirrus G load?
I don't know.
Just don't go to 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but they were very conservative in all their flight characteristics, and they weren't running as aggressive of an engine as we are, even though the airframe's set up for over 350 horsepower.
Is it?
Yeah, but then it makes it a lawn dart if you shut it off, right?
Okay, yeah.
So we're finding that power to weight and speed ratio, that's the perfect match for the airframe.
Yeah.
Because more power is not always more better.
This is more like up my field, because I like Moonies, and Moonies are efficient.
Yeah.
Then there's a little 200 horsepower Lycoming in there that does fine.
And this is meant to be fast and efficient. It's a cross-country traveler.
Yeah.
If you want a bullet, you can slap in a twin turbo Continental 550.
And if somebody wanted to build one with that, could you do that?
That's not our specialty, but yes, it would be a little bit more involved to power up, and we'd have to order a different airframe. They offer this plane in 2 different wing positions. One set back or set forward for a heavier engine,
okay,
and then one set back for a lighter engine.
That's like a F-33, A-36. They move the wing because of the length.
Yeah, exactly. They just help that to balance the CG.
All right.
So we're not having to throw weight around.
So let's go around and look at the engine in detail. So here we are at the business end. We're going to take the cowling off and look at the engine. Obviously, when it's finished, it's a top and bottom conventional cowling, because you cannot do this with a propeller on. But this is just to show you the engine, even though it is pretty handy. So there it is. So tell us about the UL engine.
So this engine is designed and built in Belgium. It's their top of the line engine. It's 220 horsepower, turbo normalized, FADAC.
Turbo normalized?
Turbo, turbo stabilized. So it only puts out 40 on the barometric pressure.
Okay.
And it'll take that all the way up to 15,000 feet.
40 inches?
Yeah.
Damn, okay.
Yeah. It's FADAC, so there's no mixture. Dual electronic ignition. It's got its own built-in alternator, so you don't have to have a backup battery for it.
Intercooled?
Intercooled.
Turbocharged?
Turbocharged, yep. It's set up, the 6-cylinder is super smooth running, but it's set up for a homeowner to maintain. It's easy to access.
The homeowner. I like it.
No,
carry on.
Well, you're going to want to live in this plane afterwards,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's
going to be so comfortable, and you're going to be going everywhere in it. But all the spark plugs are right across the top, easy to get to.
So Continental Lycoming, of course.
Opposing.
Here.
Yeah.
And the cylinders are they're not all one bank, are they? They're independent of each other.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can pull one off.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that UL focused on, was the availability of parts and serviceability. So the front cylinder is the same as the back cylinder over here.
Because of this part.
Yes.
And the middle one is square.
Exactly. So you could put the left side over on the right side and the right side over on the left side, and then their pistons and everything are consistent over all their engines.
Oh, are they?
Yes. So,
so this is available as a 4-cylinder?
Yes.
And what's its TBO?
This one is 1,700 hours. I believe the 4 cylinders or the non-turbo ones are right around 2,000. So, but these engines have gone way past that. The Belgian folks at UL are just overly conservative, but they're getting 3,000-4,000 hours.
Really?
Yes.
And is this? There are some modern new engines that you cannot overhaul them; you just replace. Is this? You can send it. Can you hone cylinders and overhaul it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all serviceable. Ray with UL Power over in Georgia is the U.S. #1 guy for doing that, and he comes out.
How much would that? If you bought one brand new, how much is an engine?
Right around this particular engine with everything is right around 70,000.
Is it?
Yeah, but that's firewall forward. When you, in the crate, you not only get the engine, but you get all the wiring harness, the ECUs, the baffles. They give you the oil. They give you extra oil filters. They give you extra air filters, and then the instructions. I mean, if you've looked at a Lycoming or Continental, it's like looking on microfiche when you're trying to work on it. Theirs are colored drawings, interactive manuals. It's been incredible working with them.
And you get all the electronics as well?
Yes. And fuel system, pre-filters, dual fuel pumps, the after filter, all flowing in. All the lines, every silver line that you see in here came with it. I mean, we got a few things mocked up because we did an early start, but yeah, I have a whole cabinet full of parts.
How many hours are on this engine right now? One, half?
Yeah, well, they pre-run it, so I don't know how long they pre-run it before we get it, but we just ran it 3 days ago.
And you've got a video of that?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's go and have a quick look at that video. So you got the video on Facebook. What's the where could people go to see this?
Aircraft Builder Assist Center on Facebook. Just type it all out.
Aircraft Builder Assist Center. Okay.
Yeah, you'll see our logo. You'll see me with the original PRZ plane that flew all the way up here from Brazil.
Okay.
And then it goes in, and you'll just see the progress of kit 12, 11, and 10 over the last year and a half.
All right. So this is the first start of this engine. When was this?
3 days ago.
3 days ago. So this is that plane, this engine. Let's see it. So how was it in real life?
It was super smooth and really quiet. You and I can have a conversation this far away where you see me standing next to the engine, and I can hear you, and we can just talk in normal voice. And even here, we have the prop at a really coarse pitch. If we find it out, it gets even quieter.
Excellent. Well, that was a big point in the whole build, to have it on and running.
Oh, it was huge. Ray Lawrence from UL Power, he came out, spent 4 days with me. We went ahead and basically hot wired it up. We put in a temporary starter. We put in a temporary oil pressure gauge so that we knew that we weren't going to damage the engine. But he went over the ECUs, the electronic ignition, everything that would help expedite the install, because there's so many features to the engine that there's actually some that you don't use, but you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And his experience, he's like, okay, ground all these wires, power all these ones. Oh wait, you don't need that. You're using Garmin.
Okay.
They already have those sensors. Bundle those up, set it to the side.
And that propeller, is that Ray's choice of propeller match for this engine?
So it's not Ray's choice. UL worked with Airmaster to match a propeller system with this engine and horsepower.
So you've got one out there. Let's go and have a close look
I
at it.
have 3 of these. We're ready to go.
Let's look at the prop and tell us all about it. So this is the propeller you've chosen to use. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, nice thing is that it was picked for us. So UL Power reached out to Airmaster to put together a system that optimizes the performance of the engine. And what they came up with was this 4-bladed prop. It's an electric constant speed prop, which is really nice because it simplifies
manual,
flight.
Automatic?
Actually, it has 3 options.
Okay.
So they have an option where it dials into the manifold pressure and it can be automatic. From takeoff to cruise, it'll do everything, just read it off the manifold pressure. It then has a semi-automatic feature where there's 3 presets for takeoff, climb, and cruise. And then the last one is a manual switch, so you can fine-tune it if you're somebody that wants to get that extra knot out of every altitude. You can manually adjust the prop just a little bit. And actually, there's a 4th feature, which is feather. So if you do have an engine out scenario, you've lost engine pressure because it's electric. If you have battery power, you can feather it and now extend your glide.
Are the blades driven? Are they driven by motors?
There is, yes.
Oh shit, sorry.
Yeah.
Shall I do that again? So, each blade is driven by a motor like this?
Well, a single motor articulates them all in unison. So they're all mechanically linked in there, but then a modern, reliable electrical motor is in there that actuates
and
them.
if it were to fail in any way, does it fail in the pitch that it's in, or does it fail to a setting?
It fails in the pitch that it's in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why is that engine in the baby bubble?
Well, that one's staged for the next plane, Kit 11. But also here in Auburn, we get a lot of foot traffic and a lot of interest in the UL engines. So having one out, people can come and see it. But really, it's in the bubble because we make a lot of mess building these composite planes, whether it's sanding or painting or just general construction. And we want to keep the engine pristine for the owners.
Is this like an unlimited sort of indexing for the propeller?
So the engine actually accommodates several brands of props, so they made it a universal hub. Because you'll see this engine in Zenith, Vans. They're in probably 30 different airframes. If you go onto their website, they'll show all the different planes, Glass Airs, you name it. There's not a huge presence in the U.S., although it's growing. But when you look on their international map, the rest of the world knows about this engine. And
the fuels it can burn, is that automotive and unleaded?
Yes.
Both?
Yes.
Without a change?
Without a change.
Really?
Yeah, typically you would do a 50-hour oil change on this no matter what. Mm-hmm. But it's so simple.
And it's direct drive.
Direct drive. It only holds 4 quarts. The oil filter is really easy to access. So oil changes are quick and affordable. So that's the brilliance of UL. You know, they designed it for pilots to be able to work on their engines.
So let's have a look inside it. And gull wing door, and then James can tell us what the avionics package is.
So we partnered up with Garmin to put together an IFR package for this. It's got dual G3Xs, 750 Navcom, the autopilot, and then everything else is all remotes behind the panel.
And the autopilot is a GFC 500?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then, not in the finished product, but while you're building it, let's see how accessible the back of the panel is by removing the windshield. And even though it's hugely accessible, if the windshield was permanently in there, as it would be in a finished plane, those G3Xs pop out, and you've got all this room back there for working behind the panel. There isn't a rat's nest of wires like in the old days.
The only thing else on there is the air conditioner.
Oh, is there air conditioned?
So we're installing a heat pump an electric heat pump, so you have both heating and air conditioning in the plane.
Where will the heat exchanger be?
It's actually going to be in the empennage. So we have the compressor up here on the firewall. It's going to have a second alternator dedicated just to the AC, so it won't interfere with the engine or the avionics. And then we run the coolant lines back to the empennage, where it's got an electric fan, and we have installed some custom NACA ducts to facilitate the airflow.
So there won't be a big old air drag panel dropping out of the belly?
Nope. The shape you see now, except for the ELT antenna, everything else is hidden.
Can you take off with the air conditioner on?
Yeah.
Okay, because some planes you can't because the drag, and they want you to turn it off when they put it full power.
Well, it only pulls 2 horsepower.
But I mean aerodynamic drag. This has no aerodynamic drag.
No aerodynamic drag at all. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So, yeah, and we'll be able to verify that through all the tests flying as well.
Right.
But there's no scoops hanging out. We don't have a big old screen on the side. It's clean and sexy, and we've done a lot of things to add speed mods and dial in its profile.
And if a builder is here and they're going, you know, and they want to do it for less, they can just not do air conditioning and not do turbo. And is that an option?
After the first 10.
Okay.
So the first 10, we really want to help the owners be able to get their insurance. We know people sell planes, so we want them to have planes that are all spec'd out the same for their value. You know, when these planes are done through the build center, they should be worth over $50,000 more if you sell them right away. So we want.
If you had to wait.
Then if you, yeah, then you have, if you waited.
Would you ever spec build one that's just for sale, or would you always going to be build centered?
We won't spec build them as ABAC, Builder Assist Center. But hopefully with Mosaic coming out, if the light sport rules come through, then Volato from Brazil will then have us as a factory center, and then we can build them as light sports through the factory.
Okay.
And that's the goal next year, the year after.
With the people who have watched this far, the question that's in their mind is, when that's flyable and shiny and in their own hangar, how much will they have spent?
Between $350,000 and $400,000.
So a new Cirrus is what, $1 million?
I think the top line is $1.4 million.
Yeah, so you could save, you know,
$1 million. That would really compensate for the difference in insurance. I don't think.
These can even have ballistic parachutes.
Yes. So this one isn't. The one that's hanging from the ceiling is already set up with the straps in the bodywork. So we've already done the work for that.
The question everybody's going to say is, oh no, my useful load will be compromised. These have tell us some numbers, useful loads.
Useful load runs between 12 and 1,300 pounds.
Really?
Yeah. So the low end is 1,200, the high end is 1,300.
So a couple of hundred more than a 182.
Yeah, more than an RV10, and more than a Cirrus, more than a Lancer.
And how much does it burn an hour?
It runs between 8 and 12 gallons per hour.
And how many gallons does it hold?
80.
80 gallons.
Yeah, so you're looking at 10 hours on the high side of flight time and 7 or 8 on the low side.
Wow.
Yeah. And you don't always have to fly with full fuel. So
no, but I mean, with the useful load the way it is, and air conditioning,
yeah,
and 80 gallons in it, you could put 4 people in it and take off on a hot day.
And still have a couple 100 pounds of luggage. So, and the luggage compartment is huge. Like, it's 43 inches long. So I plan on putting a skateboard or a scooter in the back for when I land in the back of the plane to get around.
So let's open both doors and have a look around inside it, even though it's unfinished, just at the cabin capacity. So James is in it. So talk us through like cabin dynamics and everything else that's in here.
Yeah, so it's a true 4-place plane, like 4 full-size adults. When I first flew it in Georgia, PRZ kit number 1, I got in the back. I'm 5'10", 185 pounds. The other pilot was 6'2", probably about the same weight, and we could sit there, our knees weren't up against the back, our heads weren't hitting the ceiling. It's for full-size adults, and the useful load being 12 to 1,300 pounds, for full-size adults, fuel and baggage can actually fit and fly in this plane.
And another thing that we haven't talked about yet is top speed. I mean, not the sort of imaginary speed, but what normal speeds is this going to do?
So normally with a smaller engine like the IO390, this was cruising at 150 to 165 knots. With the UL engine, it should be between 160 and 175 knots cruise. But you're taking the UL engine up, that 220 horsepower, all the way up to 15,000 feet before you're even going to get any reduction in horsepower. And so you're going to go even faster.
And everyone's going to say, but it isn't pressurized. Tell us about the oxygen system.
Yeah, so we put in, through TheraAir, twin oxygen concentrators. So they sit right underneath the seats. They supply both the front and the back. And there's quick connect ports with boom mics for the oxygen. And as you're flying, when you want oxygen, you just swing it down, reach down, and turn it on.
And it's an oxygen generator, it's not a bottle.
Well, it's a concentrator. So an oxygen generator typically is going to have like a chemical reaction to create the oxygen. What this is kind of like grandma or grandpa walking around with that shoulder bag and the nasal cannula. It's just condensing and separating the oxygen that's normally in the air so that you can utilize the most of it.
And then how high can you go with that?
That also goes up to about that 15,000 foot elevation before its effectiveness starts to get reduced. But the system that we put in actually has a supplemental bottle that will oxygen inject the system to take it even higher.
So you won't be caught short with the turbocharger wanting to go high by the need of oxygen. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and you're not having to refill the bottle or check the bottle every time. With TheraAir, they have on the panel here a little monitor so you can see what the pressure is in the tank. You can see the airflow going to the front and back passengers. There's a CO2 monitor that it's capable of, and a carbon monoxide as well. So tons of information, or you can even bring it up on an app on your phone and see how you're satting through the different altitudes. So this is a 2025 plane with 2025 technology, with the Garmin touchscreens, the electric constant speed prop, the oxygen system, the electric trim, the heating and air conditioning, which we're all used to. But the engine itself is a modern engine. It's just like all of our cars that we're driving.
Okay, James, just walk us around the airframe and show us Volato 400 isms that you've done to this plane.
Absolutely. Yeah, we didn't settle for good enough when we could do better. Even with the luggage compartment, putting in this recessed switch, we put in, these are actually, you might recognize these from a Cessna.
Cessna baggage door hinges.
Cessna baggage door hinges, re-engineered, because the original design just had a piano hinge that either went up or went down, and either one of those, if you forgot to latch them, would get ripped off. I mean, especially if this plane's going to do 170 plus knots, 195 E&E. If I forget to latch the door because I'm having a great time hanging out with my friends, I want the wind to blow it shut.
And that presses in and goes flush.
Exactly.
And inside it, baggage sized, the bulkhead is here.
Yep.
So that is all baggage. And there's going to be a floor back there.
Correct.
And what's its weight in the...
90 pounds.
Okay.
In the back. Yeah, and we're actually going to put in a panel to where you can lift it up, and any of those little bits that you would keep in their flares or life jackets, you can have stored underneath on either side of these controls, and then a flat surface for all your bags. Okay. So you're not having stuff shifting around in flight.
And if this had the ballistic parachute, where would it be in there?
The ballistic parachute sits in this back third.
Okay.
So you do lose some luggage space with the ballistic parachute.
And how much does that weigh?
I think right around 65 pounds.
And it just blasts right up through here.
Right up through there, yeah. So the plane would come configured for a parachute. So you can get a kit that's, say, pre-strapped for a parachute. You don't necessarily have to put it in.
Okay.
But you can't put straps in afterwards.
Okay.
It's either before or not at all.
Right.
But yeah, there'll be an extra door and it just blows out. And the way the strap system is on this, it brings you down in a flat orientation. It's not this tail up, lawn darting you into the ground.
More mods, more upgrades.
More mods, yeah. Not settling good enough when we can do better. The original Volato design had this winglet that just dove right across. And looking at it, it created drag. As much as it improved the plane, it was just this flat, boring surface. So we worked with aero LEDs and I had a blank. And reconceptualized a wingtip light that they have out for their RV-10s. And so we took a wingtip that they had, cut it down, and then grafted it in to our winglets. So now what you see all taped up is the finished install of the landing lights, the nav lights, the wigwags, and the taxi lights, all in this much more aerodynamic profile, recessed and ultra bright. And then it cleans up this profile.
And talking about sleek profiles, the tie down is included in there somewhere under the wing, isn't it?
Yeah, it always bothered me that you have this beautiful plane and there'd be some big old piece of steel hanging down or a bolt or whatever. So we came up with these pull down tie downs that are spring loaded. So you can tie down, they can hold 4,000 pounds. And then when you're done, just slap it up. And so there's a spring and a ball bearing that holds it up out of the way, cleaning up that air profile once again. Yeah, so there's one on each wingtip and then one on the tail. And the tail itself too is just pop down and slap chop it up.
Brilliant. Give you a knot and cruise. And there's the one for the tail.
Yep.
4,000 pounds each.
Yes.
Brilliant.
We are trying to innovate everywhere we can, even with the NACADUCs. So these are the NACADUCs for exit the heat from the empennage. And we 3D printed these screens.
And we're going to look at the 3D printer room in a minute. That's pretty impressive too, right?
Oh yeah, it's huge. You can print a small child in there.
Okay, good.
We did a smoke test. We filled the empennage with smoke, pressurized it, and we saw that when the smoke came out of a normal NACADUC, it was very turbulent and puffy. It would just kind of like billow and had no direction. But by 3D printing these screens, we organized that air, and we saw that the airflow now went much smoother out the back and over the rudder. And we put them on both sides bilaterally, so that way we didn't create uneven pressures over that control surface.
And the reason it's that way around and not that way around is because it's an exit.
Yes, we're drawing it out here, and then there's a big 2x7 one underneath that supplies the air into the empennage.
So tell us about the control surfaces and how they're operated and the background behind that.
Yeah, so the controls for the ailerons and the elevator are all push rods.
Like a Mooney.
Yes, like a Mooney. And then the rudder is cable, but the back section is a rod, so that way it's nice to hook up so you can do the yaw dampening with the Garmin servos.
Okay. And these hinges?
These hinges. So these were born out of necessity. Right now there's a nationwide shortage on 2-inch extruded aluminum hinges.
Really?
I talked to Velocity. They can't get them. I talked to Vans, Aircraft Spruce, all the big companies. They're 9 months, a year out. You can't get 2-inch extruded aluminum hinges, which is what the original design called for. So I reached out to a company called Talon out of Australia, and what they did was they developed a carbon fiber Kevlar hinge that is exponentially stronger, but it's available now. And so what we did was utilize that hinge. Instead of having 9-inch hinges, we did full length. So those hinges now act like gap tape.
Okay.
In cleaning up the profile. And they can hold 600 pounds every 2 inches. So this hinge for the flap, almost 50,000 pounds.
So that long hinge that's on here, there's an even longer one underneath under there?
Yes.
Okay.
Full length, and they're UV protected, but the big thing is they were designed for military drones. And Boeing and Airbus also use these hinges. So they're built to aircraft standards, even though you're not going to find an MS number or an aircraft spruce. They've been tested to 1 million fold overs with 0 degrade in the quality. And so looking at those results, we really thought it was a good fit and a solution for not being able to get the factory aluminum ones.
Price
About the same per foot. Now we're getting full length ones because we wanted the cleaner air and strength, but price per foot it's very comparable to the aluminum. But they're also smoother. So we're hoping to get a higher V&E because there's no play. Like if you grab an aluminum hinged aileron, it will rock back and forth.
that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you get wear points where the pin eventually wears out. It's all this whole service annual inspection deal. These ones will never do that.
And aileron trim.
Aileron trim, yep, electric trim. Servos, we have that controller in the panel. But yeah, we're excited. Hopefully in the next 2 months, 2.5 months, we'll be doing all the test flying, and we think we're going to get substantially better numbers on V&E when flutter kicks in and overall speed.
What is the wingspan?
29 feet.
29 feet. So to
Yep.
put that into perspective, a 182 is 36 feet. So this will fit in every hangar, and you can put a car in next to it or behind it. And the hinges are the same on the elevators?
Yes, all surfaces, flaps, and controls are using those carbon fiber Kevlar hinges. And what's really nice is that I was speaking with Velocity at Sun and Fun when we traveled there, and they were having the same problem with aluminum hinges, and they came up with the same solution. They're going to be using these Kevlar carbon fiber hinges for the Velocity aircraft. So it was good validation that I wasn't the only one that had the problem, and I'm also not the only one that came up with a solution.
And it's better.
And it's better. And the idea is, like, we're both really, really excited talking to Velocity. We think it's going to make better airplanes. You know, it's tough when we're stuck in 1950s technology on everything. And this is a perfect example where modern technology, modern materials can make airplanes safer and faster.
So James, tell us about the gear, the brakes, the nose wheel, the shock, and all the whole setup of its gear.
Yeah, partnered up with Behringer, Billy, he's our US rep, and he helped us put together a brake package similar to the Cirrus. So Behringer wheels, brakes, brake lines, emergency brakes.
And what's the gear leg made of?
That's aluminum 70-75.
A solid piece.
Solid piece, yeah. So it goes through a whole process where they get the flat stock, they then have to heat treat it to soften it, they machine it, bend it, then they re-harden it or anneal it, and then they x-ray it to make sure that there isn't any micro cracks inside the landing gear.
Excellent. And the nose gear and the shock strut?
Yeah, so the nose gear is chromoly steel, and originally it had this oleo strut.
That is similar to a Mooney's gear too.
Yes.
Rubber discs.
Rubber disc with about 5/8 of travel that you can't even really do. And it's a huge, 7 pounds or something like that of weight. So I teamed up with Tony, TK1 Racing. They're really well known for their suspensions for all the backcountry planes. Monster shocks, yeah.
Monster shocks.
So I went down there, and in about 15 minutes, he put together a custom strut for our plane. and then it's ground adjustable, so I can pressurize it with nitrogen and stiffen up or soften it up, and then be able to service it. That was the big thing, is that these oleo struts, they're going the way of the dodo bird. It's hard to find these parts. Tony's going to be around for the next 20, 30 years at least, and I'll always have access to those shocks, and so will the customers.
Brilliant. And then looking at the nose gear, that's just is that a 360 swiveling non-steerable nose wheel?
Correct, yeah. So you have to use differential braking for steering.
Just like in a Cirrus, just like in a lot of other planes.
A lot of other planes.
But 360?
Yeah, you don't want it to 360 while the prop's running.
Oh, okay, so with a wheel pant on too, so it's going to be limited to a certain amount of travel.
Correct, yeah.
That would be, okay.
But you can still, do a hard turn, and you're not going to spin it into the prop.
Yeah, and it does, there's wheel pants on all three of them.
Yes, and we got skirts as well.
Yeah, for fairings, covering you up, all, yeah, okay, aerodynamics, speed.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Very interesting, but what's in the garden shed?
Yes. So that's where the magic happens. A lot of our design and innovation for the interior and supporting non-critical parts, right? So,
and this would be accessible to builders who are here?
Yes, especially because some of the components are proprietary to building here with ABAC, that you can buy this kit, you can build it on your own, you can build it with other build centers, but you wouldn't get some of the features like the custom center console or little bric-a-bracs.
The 3D printer shed. So what I think we'll do with this, because Don, the cameraman, who is famous for his editing and camera photography, Don knows 3D printing, so I'm going to hold the camera and Don will talk to James in the same language.
Okay, so here we are in the 3D printer room. What do we got here? This is humongous.
Yes.
Who makes this, first of all?
This is Elegoo, and it's called the Orange Storm, Giga Storm. So this has an 800 by 800 by 1,000 millimeter build area. You could print a small child in here.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's open that up. And what's the print speed on this thing?
Well, we're running right now at 250. So it takes a couple days to print something big for sure.
But you've printed that, obviously.
Yeah, this is one of our test pieces that we were going through to develop the center console.
Okay. And it looks like you got cameras. Is it AI driven, or is it just to monitor?
It's just monitored, so that way if I'm off after work, I can check on the status of the print and shut it down if there's a failure.
Yeah, which you'll have a failure.
Yeah. Well, the other part is that the chamber needs to be heated. So opening the doors constantly to check to see how it's doing can actually damage a print.
What filaments do you run?
So in this one, we're only running ASA. So it's a high temp, high wear, UV protected. It's the qualities that it has is it tends not to warp once the product's finally done. So it will have a really long life in the plane.
Okay. I see you have a couple other, you've got another printer here for smaller parts. And
yeah, so this is just our quick print. This one prints at like 500, and we just printed this morning. It took 4 minutes.
Nice.
And these are going to be little brackets that we're going to slide over our brake lines to hold them in place as we resin them into the plane to secure them, so you won't have any rattly, noisy plane. And they're exactly what we need for our plane.
I see also you have multi-filament feeder up there.
Yeah, so that's an infinity feeder. So because this uses such a large volume of filament, and it can be printing for days on end, even a week or more on our bigger projects, we can start a roll, and when it runs out, it will automatically load the second roll, and while it's running, we're using up this little roll, we can then load a third one, and it will never run out that way. which is typically one of the problems that 3D printers have is you run out of filament, or you have partial rolls and you're having to throw them out.
Or a filament breaks mid-roll.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And then you've got your Falcon, which is a laser printer, a laser cutter.
Yeah. So we're using it for engraving. So all of our toggle switches, rather than just putting stickers on them or writing on with a Sharpie, which is what you see with a lot of home builders who have limited access to technology, we actually laser engrave each one of the switches so we can customize them to whatever that owner's preference is.
Looks professional, looks standard, and it just keeps it clean and neat.
Yeah, and if the builder wants custom font, they want it in cursive or bubbles or whatever, it's very little effort to make that change, but it means that those switches are going to be clearly labeled. Now, for us older guys that end up having reading glasses, we can also make the font bigger.
And we can replace some of our older switches with something new.
Yes, indeed.
And that's very nice.
Yeah.
And cut.
So we've seen the 3D printer, and Don's going to put me out of a job with his presentation. But we wanted to show you this too. This is everything you need. What would that be called? Like the parts department?
Yes. So this is our mobile organization. And we have it set up two ways. This is all your aircraft grade parts. So your AN bolts, nuts, and screws, all sized. So when a builder comes who's not familiar with part numbers or anything, they'll actually learn while they're here. It's a learning process. It's not just a do what I tell you. It's very immersive. And part of that is making it easy for them. So our nuts, our bolts.
So you roll this right over to your project and just access.
Yeah, well, so much time is always wasted walking back and forth. So we'll just bring this to wherever we're working and be able to access what we need. Then we have a second one for non-aviation grade hardware that might be used for interior parts, or if there's a spring, spacers, things that during the build process that we collect that we might be able to repurpose for something else that doesn't affect the airworthiness of the aircraft. We have this as a resource.
Okay.
We put everything on carts. So carts are organized by what their job is. So this would be the hardware cart. This is where we have clamps and drills, drill bits. We keep all the mess here, and then we can take it to the plane. We're not going back to a table that's fixed in one spot.
Oh. Is this your only vise?
No, I got smaller ones too.
Okay, good. So you've actually got an anvil.
Yes. We have a metal lathe as well, because there tends to be parts that come that are less than perfect. Okay. And so if we have to refine them, take off a millimeter here or there, taper an edge, pull off a burr, we don't want to have to outsource that. The whole thing here is to be efficient with the customer's time and take care of it here. You shouldn't have to bring anything with you. If you're building a plane here, you show up, you get a t-shirt, you get a hat, you get a jacket, and at the end you get a plane and a great time. Yeah. This is our clean cart. So like this one, Steve was getting ready to start doing some more work on the brakes. So our banjo fittings, Behringer laid it all out for us, so we're able to open up our box. But we lay it all out before we start any job, just to make sure we have everything we need. Our sanding cart, composite is a notoriously messy process, and one of the things we've done is with our palm sanders and everything, we've hooked it up to a vacuum system.
Oh, good.
So the floors that you see in here, this is generally what it looks like while we're standing, because we're collecting that dust as we're working. And long extension cord, we pull it to where we need it. Our paper over there. Then we have our drill cart. So this is where we do all our cutting and grinding. And then all of our organization. Each plane, each customer actually gets a pair of cabinets. So as we order parts for their plane, they're all staged and organized.
That is excellent.
right? It's not.
So you're not rooting through a mayhem of unknowns. You've got your own part cabinet.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's because people are buying parts that are specific to the aircraft. They want to know what they've already paid for. And so they can come in every week or every other week, go to their cabinet and know that this oxygen cannula is theirs for their plane. And we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul or scavenging parts from other kits. If they order something, it shows up and gets secured.
I like that. So once it's built and ready to go, mechanically, tell us about the finishing, the paint and the interior.
So part of the whole process is actually, as we're building, even before the engine or avionics are, we're already priming the fuselage. So that's where the paint booth comes in handy, is that we're taking care of portions of the paint process as we go along. Now, the paint booth is not there to give you a finished painted plane, fly it out the door. It's for us to do the big bits, to prepare it for a painter. We'll get one solid color on it for when we go to do the test flying. I don't prefer to be flying in unfinished or primed plane.
So they get it up to like the point where a paint shop would put on a gloss coat and accent stripes.
Exactly. So this plane is going to get a Mercedes gray on it, or silver. It'll be all one color, and then we'll fly over to Lincoln in a finished plane to Dave with Craycon, and he'll do all the pretty bits. So he'll put in the swoops, he'll put in the end numbers.
But is that gray
color,
the finished shine? Is that the finished coat, or is there another coat going over the top?
It'll be clear coated.
Clear coated.
Yeah.
And what do they charge for that? The finished shininess?
Well, it depends on the colors.
Okay.
You know, I'm providing all the paint.
But
so,
it's not. But it's not a paint job. It's just a coat.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and we can even do the clear coats here, but we're not set up with patterns and everything to do a complex paint job.
So somebody could design it, fly it to Lincoln, finish it.
Yes. Or if they just wanted one solid color, we can do that in-house.
Okay.
But we try to stay in our lane.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and also share in aviation. You know, we'll do all the hard wiring on the avionics, but then Corey with Precision Avionics will dial it in because that's his specialty.
And he's in the next hangar over.
Next hangar over.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Matt, the upholsterer, he's on the other side. We'll cut and we'll shape seat pans and interior panels, but he will go ahead and he'll wrap it and do the beauty part of it.
Okay.
Because we want this whole airport to be successful. So, and you can't be an expert at everything.
Right.
We want to be an expert at putting together with a customer and having an amazing experience.
At any stage, a customer at its build, if it was flyable and unfinished, and they were a painter, they could fly it home and do it at home.
Hey, if it's flying, it's theirs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the interior?
Yeah. So
that would be finished as it left, or could somebody do that themselves?
They could do that themselves.
Okay.
You know, the nice thing is it's experimental. So, you know, the world is your oyster.
Okay.
Anything you can imagine. We got racing seats from Amazon, and then we just modified the shape to support the side stick.
Okay.
And they're super comfortable, which, I don't know, I've flown in your Mooney, and
it's super comfortable.
yeah.
No, so that's a good point you just brought up. Just apart from anything else, it's a side stick with a central console throttle.
Yes.
So you got an open panel and a side stick like a Cirrus.
You cross your legs when you're flying. You know, you got to wiggle, move. You got plenty of room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You know, the whole idea of this airframe is to reduce the workload. You know, with complex or high performance planes, you're adjusting the mixture, you're doing this, your hands are going a million times an hour and your head is down. You're not able to focus on situational awareness around you as much. With this plane, with this engine and all its configurations, you push button start, it fires up, you taxi down, and then click it to take off for the prop and give it throttle and go. And then when you're flying, you're going up and down. You're not worried about altitude affecting the engine. You're not worried about mixture.
Do we know about takeoff and landing distances or anything yet?
Under 1,000 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this pops off the ground really quick. This wing, it's a Hershey bar configuration, kind of like an RV10. So it's very docile and tame and stable. So, and when you look at how much surface area this is what contributes to that useful load. It just pops.
And stall speed?
65 in landing configuration, but we're going to be working with vortex generators to try to drop that down.
But that's the same as a 182.
Yeah. You know, I landed in it and took off in it in Georgia several times with no flaps at all. And it was just smooth.
So this is the first of a series of videos about this, because there's going to be things we haven't covered, there's going to be questions, but we've seen like how they arrive, how they get built, where they get built, the process, and there's one here that's running, but obviously isn't finished. This plane's going to be at Oshkosh, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're going to hold off on the test flying in order to bring this to Oshkosh, and we'll be with the UL Power booth showing off their engine.
So if you're at Oshkosh, come and see this plane with this engine. But we'll do other videos, and questions you've got, just put them in the questions area and we'll have James answer them, and we'll keep in touch as how this is progressing, because Placerville is only 20 miles from here, so it's very easy to get backwards and forwards, and James actually lives in Placerville.
Yeah, I fly over on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And this should be ready to go for test flying, hopefully right around August, September 1st. Okay. We're that close. We just couldn't get it done before Oshkosh.
So after Oshkosh, when it's flying, we'll come back, we'll go in it and fly it.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast.
Well, thanks for talking about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing us it.
Thank you.
We're obviously going to be in touch, and we're going to jump in the Mooney and fly back to Placerville.
And next time I'll race you.
Okay. We'll put our wheels up.
I won't need to.
Okay. He made it. Got his medical back. Okay, this is Mark from Skywagon University. We're back at Placerville. I'm just filling up the Mooney with the flight there and back. 15 minutes each way. It's going to use 4 gallons of fuel. Imagine driving an hour each way in a 350 powered Chevy and trying to use 4 gallons of fuel. Very economical. So we went over there and looked at the Volato 400 at the build center at Auburn. And it's the first of a series of videos, because we'll show you it as it gets closer to the end, and we'll show you it when it's flying. It's a very interesting concept. So click on the link here if you like the videos to subscribe, and the notification bell for notifications. And there are 200 more other videos on this channel about types and makes and models and differences between 182s and Beeches, Bonanzas. Look through those. And also, if you really like the video, you can become a Patreon member, which contributes a small dollar amount per month to allow us to do more of this. But thanks very much for watching.